Episode 12, Maine. Lilith.
Welcome to USA, Myths and Legends, the podcast that uncovers the chilling folklore and true tales from every corner of this vast nation. Tonight, we journey to the rugged coast of Maine, a place where the pine trees stand tall and the ocean whispers secrets. But sometimes those whispers aren't of ancient mariners or spectral ships. Tonight, we delve into a darkness far more tangible, a human evil that cloaked itself in beauty and love, sowing death for over 5 decades. This is the story of Lilith, a woman forever etched into the grim memory of the old-timers as the Black Widow of Maine. Her trail of victims wasn't limited to her lovers and husbands, but anyone who dared to cast a suspicious glance her way. Her very name, Lilith, held an ominous resonance, a premonition of the shadows she would cast. From her tender adolescence, she possessed an almost unearthly beauty. Her hair, the color of a moonless night, framed a face of porcelain perfection, and her eyes, an arresting shade of green, seemed to capture the very essence of the sun-dappled pine forests. Men, like moths to a deadly flame, found themselves irrevocably drawn to her. They would fall under her potent spell at first sight, their hearts ensnared, and with each new affection, a macabre and chilling pattern began to emerge, a silent symphony of tragedy. Her first boyfriend, a strapping young man, succumbed to a sudden fever that baffled every physician. The second, a weathered fisherman, vanished beneath the unforgiving waves during a storm no one had foreseen. The third, a burly lumberjack, met his end in a gruesome accident involving his own axe. Thus, the grim tally of her deceased boyfriends climbed, one after another, reaching an astonishing total of 30. But it wasn't just her romantic interests who met untimely fates. As hushed rumors began to slither through the town, a bright young woman, once Lilith's dearest friend, started to ask uncomfortable questions, noticing the insidious patterns. A mere week later, her lifeless body was discovered in a deep ravine, another fatal accident while seemingly gathering wildflowers.
I remember seeing her, just a young girl, but there was always something cold about her eyes, even when she smiled. Like she was always watching, always calculating.
As her 20s drew to a close, Lilith subtly altered her deadly game. She no longer sought mere boyfriends. Her sights were set on husbands. Her first husband, a prosperous merchant, died of a convenient heart attack a mere year after their vows. With his substantial inheritance secured, Lilith gracefully relocated to a new town, where she ensnared a wealthy landowner. And with each new marriage, a deeper, more profound horror was unveiled. Lilith bore 15 children, and with each child a chilling tragedy. The first, a helpless infant, died in its crib from what was attributed to sudden infant death syndrome. The second, a lively 5-year-old, got lost in the dense woods during a playful game and was never seen again. The third, a 7-year-old, drowned in the icy grip of a frozen lake. It was whispered among the terrified townsfolk that she watched these unfolding tragedies with an unnerving, cold indifference. People began to murmur that a demon resided within her, that she not only eliminated her husbands, but also sacrificed her own flesh and blood to inherit fortunes that would otherwise have living heirs. She married 15 times, bore 15 children, and all 15 children perished. The horrific saga repeated itself, echoing through different towns, across decades and state lines. Yet Lilith always found her way back to Maine, as if her icy heart was inextricably bound to these cold, unforgiving lands. But she did not move through the world unwatched. A determined detective, a police lieutenant from a small Vermont town, noticed the chilling trail of deaths and became consumed by her. He meticulously gathered death reports, interviewed hesitant neighbors, and slowly, painstakingly, pieced together the monstrous puzzle. Lilith, however, was always one chilling step ahead. The lieutenant suffered a fatal car accident on a treacherous mountain road. Vermont police officially ruled it an accident, but inside his mangled vehicle, they discovered a note. It read, "Mind your own business, Lieutenant." The handwriting was perfectly legible, and it belonged to no one familiar to the dedicated officer.
My cousin, he was a state trooper up in Vermont. He told me about that case, the lieutenant who died. He said they found that note, and it wasn't like anything the lieutenant would write. It gave them all the creeps, you know.
But Lilith's malevolence knew no bounds. A kind and loyal woman who had served as a nanny for her during her third marriage began to harbor deep suspicions when Lilith's third child died. She made meticulous notes, safeguarding them in secret, and she too, one day, simply vanished. Her body was discovered months later in a desolate swamp, ruled a suicide with a dagger coincidentally identical to one Lilith had purchased in a nearby town. When Lilith was well past 80, her body frail but her charm remarkably intact, she married her last husband. He was a wealthy man devoted to philanthropy, unlike the others. He was genuinely kind, a widower who sought only sincere companionship. Lilith, with her practiced allure, convinced him that she was that very companion. For the next few years, he cared for her with unwavering love and devotion, completely oblivious to the abyss of darkness that dwelled within the soul of the woman he cherished. The now retired detective, still haunted by Lilith, expected daily to hear the announcement of this last man's death, convinced it would be another sudden illness or accident. But months stretched into years and the man lived. One fateful night, when Lilith could no longer rise from her bed, she looked at her devoted husband and told him she had a confession to make. He, deeply moved by the thought of a final confession from his dying wife, leaned close to the bed. And in the hours that followed, Lilith recounted everything. She did so not with an ounce of remorse or regret, but with a chilling, serene joy. She told him about every boyfriend, every husband, every child, every person who dared to suspect her, and every law enforcement officer who met an accidental end. She narrated with horrifying detail how she had committed each heinous crime, how she had manipulated each victim, and how she had evaded justice time and again. The man at first believed she was delirious, her mind succumbing to the ravages of age. But as the night wore on, the details she provided were so precise, so undeniably true, that sheer horror seized him. She spoke of the 15 children, how the first one's accident was actually suffocation in the crib, and how she had drowned the second in a water barrel when he thought his father had lost him in the woods. She unveiled the horrific truth about every single one. At the break of dawn, Lilith ceased her chilling narrative. She looked at her husband, who was now utterly pale, his eyes wide with unspeakable terror, tears silently streaming down his ashen cheeks. She smiled, the same captivating smile she had wielded her entire life to charm men. Her last words to him were,
"I loved you, my dear, but this is my gift to you, the gift of my truth. And now you are my last masterpiece, the only one who knows everything I've done. You will have to live with my legacy. Isn't that wonderful?"
Shortly after uttering these chilling words, Lilith closed her eyes and died peacefully. And that, my friends, is the most terrifying part of this grim tale. The retired detective, upon learning of Lilith's death, felt a profound sense of defeat. But the man she had loved until the very end, her last husband, lives to this very day. I've seen him. He is now a recluse, a mere ghost of his former self, his soul utterly destroyed. The townspeople whisper that grief over his wife's death drove him mad, but the few who dare to speak of the true story know the chilling truth. That Lilith did not kill him with poison or a weapon, but with her words, leaving him on earth as the sole guardian of her horrible secret. A secret that haunts him day and night, condemning him to live the rest of his life in his own personal hell. So friends, as the fire burns low and the biting cold of the Maine night surrounds us, remember the story of Lilith, because sometimes the most dangerous person doesn't take your life. They take away your peace. And the next time a stranger possessing an unusual, captivating beauty arrives in town and offers you their love, just be aware, because a woman's heart of ice is far more dangerous than any beast lurking in the woods.